Welcome to this week's episode of Jonathan on Money. This is episode number 130. So, as you can see, we're in vest weather season, which gets me really excited for those who are watching the podcast on YouTube at Jonathan on Money. We also just finished the high holiday season, and I must say, getting these podcasts out in a timely fashion has been quite challenging. But I do have a loyal listener base, so I felt it was a top priority. Selfishly, doing something consistently over a long period of time, even though it may be difficult, is quite rewarding. So I like to keep pumping out my podcast articles and other content regularly. Before jumping into this week's program, I'd like to share my upcoming fall live webinars will continue on October 30th at 8:30 a.m. on state income taxation of trust featuring Andrew S. Katzenberg, partner at Aaron Fox Schiff based in New York City and Baltimore. And I'll be sure to include the registration information in the show notes of this episode. Very timely topic. And now for today's agenda, my talking points this week will discuss retirement planning considerations beyond your portfolio. Our quote this week is from Charlie Munger on simplicity. I'll spend the last half of the episode answering listeners' questions, including investing in private assets within publicly traded ETFs. And finally, we're going to end with an actionable idea to implement your investing life, where we'll discuss how to have an impact with your portfolio by setting up a way to preserve multi-generational family values. With that, let's jump into this week's talking point. So, when it comes to retirement planning, many people focus exclusively on the financial aspects. After all, the ability to afford one's lifestyle when no longer receiving an income is crucial. An often overlooked, but also important factor to a successful retirement are the non financial considerations. Failure to plan for these areas can lead to an unfulfilling retirement and more rapid physical and mental decline. As a financial advisor, I get paid to give advice about the money components of retirement planning. However, based on nearly 2 decades of experience, I find a meaningful percentage of my conversations also include discussions on the non financial considerations. I'm going to share some of these non-money issues that every soon-to-be retiree should consider. And the first is housing. It's essential to determine the appropriate living accommodations in retirement. The financial factors include living in a home that is affordable during multi-decade retirement, considering taxes, repairs, and upkeep costs may all be more challenging on a fixed budget. The equally important non-financial considerations include a single-story layout to eliminate stair use, barrier-free bathrooms with walk-in showers and grab bars, wide doorways and hallways for wheelchair or walker access, open floor plans for easy navigation, accessible outdoor spaces like patios with level surfaces, installing smartphone tech for lighting, security, and emergency alerts. A home that is set to accommodate aging will allow retirees to live there for longer with a lower probability of suffering serious injury. Next is your daily routine. Our working years are filled with meetings, projects, commuting, and other activities. We tend to complain about these tedious tasks while we are working. However, the truth is, they're all healthy. Without them and the structure they provide, folks have a seemingly endless time on their hands. Lack of daily structure and productive ways to fill one's time is linked to more rapid mental and physical decline. While doing the same work in retirement that you did through your working years may be a little too intense, finding some type of work that offers structure in your day is crucial. This may include volunteering part-time work, or mentoring. Infusing your retirement years with work has immense benefits that should not be overlooked. Another non-financial retirement consideration, believe it or not, is your social life. As folks age, social circles tend to shrink, but the quality of relationships tends to improve. Older adults should prioritize emotionally fulfilling connections, which are extremely beneficial in retirement. Studies have shown that strong relationships may help protect against cognitive decline, buffer against depression, and offer higher levels of happiness and purpose. Prioritizing healthy socializing in one's retirement is imperative. This can happen at places of worship, study groups, book clubs, the golf course, and many other venues. Next is a sense of purpose. After 4 decades in the workforce, one's career becomes part of one's identity. Waking up one day with that identity gone can be a large hole to fill. My proactive suggestion for filling this void starts with making a list of things that are important to you. The next step is figuring out a way to incorporate those interests into your everyday life while in retirement. Sure, family and spirituality may be a part of your sense of purpose. However, family members may have their own schedules, and hanging out at your place of worship most of the day may not be practical. Instead, determine projects or causes that you care about and figure out how to get involved with them. This type of work can cause an immense amount of reward and give you a reason to jump out of bed every morning. Another is physical and intellectual stimulation. A phrase that I hear often with retirees is use it or lose it. If you don't use your mind, your body, inevitably it will deteriorate. Therefore, as tempting as it may be to sit on the beach and drink cocktails every day, you should fight this desire and figure out a way to keep your mind and body working. Pushing yourself cognitively and physically can help prolong your active retirement years. Physical activity helps with both your body and mind. Daily walking, biking, swimming, or other low impact sports can help keep your mind and body healthy. I've had retired clients who do triathlons and bike through around the entire country. However, for some more common folks, I'd advocate for finding a physical activity that they enjoy and can do consistently. In addition to physical activity, finding cognitive exercises that you enjoy, which push you to think, are extremely helpful. This may be playing games, which can double as a good social activity, writing that book or a regular column in the local paper, or teaching a course at a nearby high school or community college. There are many ways of exercising your brain. The key is finding something you enjoy so you stick with it over the long term. And finally, there's legal considerations. Holistic wealth planning also encompasses having your legal affairs in order. This may include a will, and a will is a legal document that outlines how a person's assets and property should be distributed over their death. A power of attorney, which is a legal document authorizing someone to act on another's behalf in financial, legal, or medical matters. There's the healthcare proxy, and a healthcare proxy is a legal document naming someone to make medical decisions if you are no longer able to communicate what they are. And there's a living will. A living will is a legal document stating your medical treatment preferences if you're incapacitated and unable to communicate these decisions. Having these four simple items in place can make the handling your affairs much more seamless. Take the time and spend the money to get these documents prepared by a competent attorney. Equally important is to communicate where they are to your loved ones so they know how to find them should they be needed. This will save your family a tremendous amount of headache and heartache down the road. Similar to the financial aspects of retirement planning, the non financial areas also require planning ahead. When it comes to having enough money in retirement, we're constantly reminded to save and invest to have a sufficient nest egg. For non money issues, the legal items should be revisited once a year to ensure they accurately reflect your wishes and potentially new family dynamics. The lifestyle and housing concerns should be explored and tested out in the 5 to 10 years before retirement. This may mean exploring various retirement communities or picking up a hobby, physical activity, or joining a social club that you can continue to pursue while in retirement. Taking action in the years leading up to retirement can make your golden years a successful and rewarding phase of life. Okay, those are the talking points this week. As a reminder, you can be notified of all my recent articles, webinars, and all the work I put out by subscribing to my free monthly newsletter at parkbridgewealth.com/newsletter. This week's quote is from Charlie Munger. For those who don't know, Charlie Munger, whom I've quoted numerous times, was an American investor, attorney, and philanthropist, and longtime vice chairman and Warren Buffett's partner at Berkshire Hathaway. Munger was largely credited with shaping Berkshire's investment philosophy. Munger once said, "Simplicity has a way of improving performance through enabling us to better understand what we're doing." This quote suggests that simplicity enhances effectiveness because it clarifies our actions. When systems, strategies, or decisions are stripped of unnecessary complexity, we gain sharper insight into their mechanics, allowing us to act with greater precision, confidence, and consistency. Simplicity isn't just elegant, it's a performance advantage. In the world of investing, you probably hear me encourage folks to keep things plain, simple, and boring quite often. The reason for that is there's so much noise in our industry, and once you let all this noise influence your approach, you'll end up making life more complicated, difficult, and inevitably make less money by getting bogged down in all the wrong things. In the world of both investing and life, once you strip out all the nonsense and focus on what's actually important, you'll come out ahead. In life, this may be a different for every person, but for most people, it probably includes family, spirituality, making a livable wage, and enjoying your hard work. In the world of investing, this means utilizing plain vanilla broad-based funds as the cornerstone of your portfolio, saving 20% a year into these investments and doing that for a period of a few decades. When you look back after a number of years, you'll see a life and investment approach that embraces simplicity, which will be quite rewarding both financially and otherwise. Okay, now let's jump into this week's financial questions. And if you do have a question, feel free to submit it to me and maybe answer in a future episode. Okay, first question. I've been told that holding 2x or 3x leveraged funds doesn't compound the way most investors would expect. What does that mean? And why not just hold one of these funds if you're certain it will go up over the long run? So it's best to start with the end of your question, which is nothing in life is certain, so you need to plan accordingly. Next, these ETFs are structured to achieve these outcomes by using debt and derivatives like future contracts, swaps, and options to amplify returns. While they offer the potential for higher gains, they also come with increased risk, including the potential for magnifying losses. The reason why these products don't compound like you would expect is due to the fact that they often rebalance their positions daily, meaning they adjust their holdings to maintain the desired leverage. This rebalancing can lead to a phenomenon called volatility drag, where the ETF's performance may deviate from the underlying indices' performance over long periods, particularly in volatile markets. Leverage ETFs are not designed to be long term investments. Their daily rebalancing means that their performance is best suited for short term trading or speculation. Since the phrase short term trading is not in any way investing, these products do not belong in a serious part of your portfolio. Carve out a tiny portion of your investment assets and put it into your cowboy account, which is the account you use for speculation that makes up 5% or less of your overall investments. And if you do have a tie to speculate, that's the way to do it. These products remind me of a colleague at a major investment firm that I worked at. He was 70 years old and most of his money was in a 2x ETF. I suggested that he diversify and minimize his risk with this incredibly risky product. He shrugged his shoulders and told me if he had to work that it has worked out so far. And I imagine most of his net worth blown up at this point, given how this ETF has performed. The lesson is this: you should ask your advisors how they invest their own money. If their own nest egg is in DREC or in something different than what you're recommending to you, then you may want to reconsider working with them. Beware of who you get your investment advice from, and also beware of what you invest in. Next, I'm 39 years old. I make about $1 million a year. Good for you. My issue is that I'm short on cash and have a large upcoming expense. Most of my assets outside my home are in real estate, which is non-liquid, and racehorses, also non-liquid. I have a very small amount in my 401k and brokerage, which are liquid. Should I take money from my 401k brokerage, or take out a HELOC, which I should be able to pay back in a few months? Sometimes I feel like I live in the twilight zone. You make $1 million a year and have no liquidity. Instead of having extra cash on hand to pay your bills, you decided to invest in racehorses. Stop it. Please just stop it. Also, why is so much of your money in illiquid real estate? It makes no sense. But let me take a few breaths, have a l'chaim or three, and relax, and let's get to your question. You don't seem to have a choice in what to do here, since your money is in horses and real estate projects that are either totally liquid or worth nothing. This necessitates taking money from either your 401k or brokerage. Personally, I'd sooner recommend taking funds from your brokerage account, which will hopefully keep your retirement account somewhat on track. Borrowing money using a HELOC seems incredibly imprudent given your poor money decisions. Taking on more debt should usually be avoided. I can give you a much more nuanced answer depending on the value and makeup of your accounts, but I don't have that information and I don't want to gloss over the main point, which is to stop doing ridiculous things with your money. You have a high income, so hopefully you can become more disciplined and stick to a more sensible strategy going forward. If you fail to heed this advice, your poor decisions will just compound and may become insurmountable. Next question: what are your thoughts on investing in private assets in publicly traded ETFs? Pass. It's important to understand that while ETFs can offer exposure to private equity and private credit, it's not the same as directly investing in individual private companies for a few reasons. One, liquidity. While private equity ETFs are traded like stocks, the underlying private assets they hold are generally illiquid, meaning they are harder to buy and sell. This can lead to potentially liquidity mismatches and valuation challenges, especially in volatile markets. Two, higher costs. Private equity and ETFs may have higher expensive ratios compared to typical ETFs. Three, limit exposure to private assets. Some ETFs only have a small percentage of their assets in private assets, so they may not provide significant exposure to private markets. Reason number four is transparency. Transparency regarding the specific private companies held within the ETF may be limited. If you want to invest in private equity, it should be done in the right way. Through a fund, these ETFs should sound gimmicky to me and likely won't work out as anticipated. Next question. Long story short, I received $2 million one time in a one-time payout. Am I set up for life or do I still need to work? Long story short, you should give me that money to manage. The answer to this question obviously depends on a lot of other factors, which I don't have the answer to, namely How old are you? Where do you live? Do you have any money saved, any other money saved or other assets? Do you have other income sources? What are your expenses? Bekitzer, since I'm unable to give you a specific answer because I have very limited information, what I will tell you is this: $2 million doesn't go as far as it used to even though it sounds like a lot of money. People are anchored to the fact that $1 million was an incredible amount of money decades ago, but inflation happened and a couple million may not be worth enough. However, if you're retired now, live within your means, aren't supporting six kids in Colo or six unemployed Ivy League school graduates with degrees in ancient basket weaving techniques with a minor in hating Jews, of course, then you should be fine. On the other hand, if you're 40, live in New York City with four kids in yeshiva and minimal savings, then no, this is not enough to be set for life. You will likely need a multiple of that number. Sorry to break the news to you. In the latter, and if you the latter description more closely resembles your situation, which I assume it does, then you need to get back to work. Okay, final question here is, do you ever have a family meeting about finances? It's a great question. Laura and I actually have a weekly Shenkman family partner off-site meeting on our calendars. There are several reasons or several goals here. One is to mock corporate America for having off-site meetings where adults play games and discuss the weather in order to build team rapport. Two, to try to take a 2 week break from the daily grind to get out of the office and do something less stressful. Three, to discuss any other family matters, which may include finances. For example, 2 weeks ago, we went to the Rebbe's Ohel, which was a cool and worthwhile experience. Sometimes we go on a walk where various items were discussed. Sometimes we take lunch at a local eatery. Oftentimes, a Shenkman family offsite doesn't happen because a client wants to meet at that designated time on my calendar. So, what's the bottom line here? Is that we do have time set up to meet during the week to discuss financial related matters. In reality, our life is not that structured or organized. Every day is like a whirlwind, as I'm sure many people listening or watching this could relate to. And as financial matters come up, we discuss them briefly and then proceed. This may be a 2 minute this may be a minute or two or whatever financial topic we need to discuss. It happens year end about tzedakah. Once a year, I'll review Lauren's 401k. Sometimes Lauren's benefit change, and we discuss that once a year. A few times a year, we'll have a larger than anticipated financial outlay, which is discussed. Most of the time, it's just regular expenses as usual, which we don't need to discuss. Interestingly, we never review our portfolio. I know how we are invested and don't need to look at the daily or monthly gyrations, and Lauren isn't interested. We automate our savings so we don't discuss adding money to our accounts unless we happen to have extra funds that we didn't anticipate. I think healthy and open communication about financial matters and being on the same page about money is essential. Setting a specific time to discuss this stuff regularly is great. Practically, in the chaos of everyday life, having regular meetings may not be so easy. So, just agreeing to spend a few minutes and discuss matters as they arise or when something's top of mind is a good policy. I look forward to discussing this answer at our next Shankman Family Partner Offsite meeting to find out if Lauren believes this rant is actually accurate. Okay, that's it for financial questions this week. And by the way, if you have a more involved personal finance situation, please feel free to reach out directly to me, and perhaps my team and I can help you. The best way to get a hold of me is via email at jonathan@parkbridgewealth.com. And finally, I would like to end with a timely, natural idea that listeners can implement to their own financial lives. Today's timely idea is going to continue on the theme we've been focusing on, which is how investors can have an impact with their money. Another way to do that is by preserving multi-generational family values. I sometimes work with several generations of one family where we draft a family investment policy statement or IPS that reflects certain principles they wish to continue passing down to future generations. For example, earlier in my career, many Holocaust survivors told me explicitly not to invest their money in certain companies that collaborated with the Nazis during World War II. Many of these companies are still publicly traded decades after the Holocaust. Their survivors' children and grandchildren wish to continue adhering to the same investment parameters today. Following the guidelines of the family IPS requires an annual audit of their holdings to ensure that there's no exposure to the specified publicly traded companies. And you can implement these multi-generational values in a similar fashion by discussing your values with your financial advisor, laying them out in your investment policy statement, and auditing your holdings once a year. And with that, it's a wrap for this week's show. Any comments or questions, feel free to reach out directly to me via email. I love hearing from my listeners. And finally, the secret to financial success is no secret at all. It's to spend less than you make, invest the difference prudently, and ignore all the noise. See you next time on Jonathan on Money.